this. Okay. When you describe yourself as a reader, okay, you take the test, and then you get a score, and the score tells you what level are you, okay? And in the reading by Wolf, there is a description of, this is for L1, but it can be used for L2. Hi, Felipe, how are you? Okay, I see that you're there and that you're here. So here you have this description of types of readers, okay? From the emerging pre-reader to the expert reader, okay? Since you're already adults, since you have already gone through reading in Spanish from, I guess from you were 5 or 4 years old. Sometimes people start reading before that, okay? That stage is already over, the emerging pre-reader. Then comes the novice reader, then the decoding reader, the fluent comprehending reader, and the expert reader, okay? And each one of these stages is described in the paper, in the 2 chapters by Wolf, and here in this PowerPoint, okay? So even though this is primarily for L1, you can also use some of these notions to describe your own reading process. That is, here a keyword is exposure, okay? Like when did you realize that you were able to read in English? Was it in high school when you were taught English? I don't know if you started from Quinto Básico and so on. Then comes the novice reader, okay? In which some of these issues were discussed by Dr. Abraham in his presentation, okay? Here is where you realize that what you see on the page written has meaning, okay? That's one part. And what you see on the page has meaning and has sound, that's another part, okay? So the problem with English is that English is not a transparent orthographic language, okay? So there you have the problem making these distinctions, okay? And then you keep describing the idea that I just talked to you about, C, K, L, G, that every grapheme has a sound, okay? And then comes the decoding reader, okay? And this word is interesting because it's a low frequency word, huh? The staccato, and that's a word from Italian. It is when you read and you go like letter by letter, okay? You hesitate into understanding what it says, okay? In the reading by Wolf in Perusal, I asked you a question for those of you that are reading through Perusal. And the question is, do you remember when was the first time that you realized that you were reading in Spanish? How old were you? Where were you? Okay, so that's very crucial to keep in mind. The question is, like, were you trying to read every single language that you saw around, like you were fascinated with the language, and you were outside and you were on the bus or you were on the streets and you saw the signs and you kept trying to read them all because you had realized that you were able to decode, that is, to break that code and understand it. So keep that in mind, because that's an interesting. People say that when they first realized that they could read, they could not stop. Like they wanted to read like every single thing that came to them on TV, on the phone, in the streets, and it was at that time, the first time, it's slow reading, like you would say la pintana, and then very slowly, you, because it's also a guessing game, very slowly you, like with the first two syllables, then you realize what it is and you don't need to keep decoding. Okay, so that's a decoding reader. And this is interesting because uh, here is where you understand the inner workings of the language. For example, for this word beheaded, at this stage of in the decoding reader, you realize that it's made up of the smallest chunks of language that we call morphemes, okay? And you realize that it's three morphemes, be, head, et, okay? And then comes, yes, this is what we just said, what's in a word, the morphemic awareness. This dimension, this dimension is, it's interesting to keep in mind, okay? Because these days, with the crisis of reading, most people say, why is it that I need to, why do I need to read, okay? So the emotional part, okay, comes from teachers, from tutors, from parents, that encourage people to read, okay? What I know and what I have read is that the literature says that when children are read to, they are better readers than if you are not read to, okay? So in the future or now, if you have a, if you have a child, okay, it is a good practice to read to them, not only for them to become good readers, but also for activating imagination and fantasy and all that. And then comes the last two types of reader, which is the fluent comprehending reader and the expert reader. Okay, and this has to do with speed, and this has to do with a pool, the pool of language that you have. Okay, remember that a key concept that was also introduced, that is in the literature, it's the concept of the threshold hypothesis. Okay, threshold. Threshold in Spanish means umbral. Okay, the threshold hypothesis says that you need a pool of language, that is an amount of vocabulary that can push you into reading. If you don't have that pool of language, then reading will not come up, will not start. Okay, you might have like isolated words. I'm thinking about kindergarten where you have like names of colors or the numbers, but that's not enough to read. Uh, in reading, you need knowledge of the grammar and vocabulary. Vocabulary is crucial, okay? Because with vocabulary, you're getting the meaning. With grammar, you're getting the connections between the meaning. The last stage is the expert reader, okay? That is very fast reading, and that involves the critical dimension. I'm going to show you here in the chat. Speaking of decoding, speaking of the differences between English and Spanish. Okay, one is more transparent, Spanish, and the other is more obscure. What I'm trying to say is that there is no direct relation between the grapheme and the sound. Okay, and there in Wolf, there is a section that I can show you now, but let me finish with this. Okay, Bertrand Russell says that he could spell fish. I'm going to write it in capital letter. Bertrand Russell said that he could spell fish like that. So what you're reading there is what? Goatee, goatee, or goatee, okay? He says that English is so chaotic, okay? He says that he could spell fish, like that. Why? He says, because if you take the GH, okay, and you find that in words like this one, okay, how is that GH there pronounced? Enough, right? Enough. Okay, so that's the first one. And then he says, O. How can O be pronounced E? So that O there is in words like this. How is the O pronounced there? We, right? Women. Okay, so that's GHO, so F, and then there's the last one. So that last one in words like this. Motion. Okay, so goatee, if you follow those rules, can be pronounced as fish. Okay, because it has the sounds, but that just joke that he made exemplifying this non-transparency of English with respect to the connection between the grapheme and the sound. Let me share you the, if I can here. So I'm sure that you can come up with other examples of this. Yeah. I'm just looking. an example of this in the reading by Wolf that is in Carousel. Yes, good for all. Yes, dearest creature in creation. And here in the there is an example here. Oops, it's slowly coming. Here, maybe you cannot see it very well, but it is in the Moodle. Now, if you know of a software that can make text into voice, you can also try this. Copy this piece of here, this piece of text that is here in Proust and the Squid, and make it into voice. What they're doing here is they're exemplifying the pair EA, okay? EA, okay? And if you read this here, okay, it says, there once was a beautiful, okay, there you have beautiful bear who sat on a seat. There you have at least three pronunciation of the connection of the EA. Beautiful, bear, seat. Okay, there was once a beautiful bear who sat on a seat near to breaking, and read by the earth about how the earth was created. She smiled beatifically, full of ideas for the realm of her winter dreams. So pay attention there to the multiple possibilities of that couple of vowels, the two vowels, EA and, okay. So this is telling you that you have like the child has a hard time understanding this arbitrary connection between the spelling and the sound. But by hook or by crook, porangas o por mangas, that means porangas o por mangas, by hook or by crook, the child will, and you also are learning this arbitrariness of the language when you read it, okay? So for those of you, Luciano and Felipe and Daniela, that are following the reading in Carousel, okay, here at some points there is the question that I asked you to remember when was the first time that you started reading, and here are the descriptions of the 5 types of readers that you're going to need by that you're going to read to complete the assignment. Any questions, Daniela, Felipe, and Luciano, about this, or comments? Let me see there.
I wanted to ask about the extension of the profile.
There is no minimum or maximum.
Limit.
What quantity is not as important as quality. As long as you describe yourself and as a reader, and as in terms of anxiety, in terms of strategies, in terms of styles, that's fine. Okay. But again, let me see if I can show you how do I go back to? Let me see if I can show. I can share with you the rubric for rubric. Okay, I'm gonna open it there. Ah,
Uh,
yes.
by the way, yesterday I sent a mail. I don't know if you received it. Some of you sent me a mail back, so I sent the rubrics as well.
Okay. Before I forget, I don't know if did you realize that the PowerPoint that Dr. Abraham sent contained more than what he presented? Okay. Uh, uh, Probably because he recycled another presentation, but what I did was I cut it down and I selected. What I had to do was I converted into Word the PDF that he sent so that I can clip it, and I just put the slides that he commented, because the other section contains some information that was relevant to Boston and Massachusetts, because it dealt with how language reading is tested and how learners of English as a second language there were not assessed well. So I'm going to share with you the rubric. And I think Daniela said that she, this is in the Moodle, okay? You need to write an introduction. The introduction would say, okay, what it contains, what is the purpose of this profile, and you need to organize it in two sections: learner and reader. Okay, in terms of the learner, you describe the instruments, you comment them, and support it with the literature. Okay, and the tests, as some of you have already been doing in the forum. Okay. Each one of them has 20%, and then the reading has also 20%, and then you have final remarks, like sort of conclusion where you said, okay, here I have presented, and what would you like to highlight here, and what is left ahead. Okay, this is optional. If you want to compare your results with somebody else, that's okay. So it's 20, 20, 20, 60, 20, 80, and 20. Okay, this is what do you see as possible application of these ideas in language teaching and learning. Okay, was it useful for you as a learner? Would you say that this is going to be useful for you as a teacher? Why? Maybe because it pays attention to differences. Maybe because we're going to be working in under the norm of the law of inclusion, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's okay. So that was the first part of, and now very briefly, I would like to introduce the last topic for this class, that is teaching English in Chile, because that's what you will be in 2 years, 3 years, when you graduate as a teacher of English. Okay, even though things will be really changed because of the pandemic, but still, when things go back to what? Because we're not going back to normal. When things go back to whatever they go back to, you will be working as a teacher of English in the future, okay? So that's why this topic, teaching of English, and this is based primarily on, and where is the chat? Let me, this is based primarily on chapters 2 and 2 and we need to decide on whether it's going to be 6 or 7, but let's say, let me see. I'm going to say 2 first, okay? And that is the book by Barahona. So the thing is, and the book is in the Moodle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the chapters, okay? But 2 is for sure, okay? Because 2, where is the book? Let me see. 2 deals with, let me see if I can, you can minimize Zoom when you're recording this meeting. You cannot minimize.
Mr.
Okay.
Faria, so we have the Krishnamurti essay, then we have the report, the learner report, and then they have to write down another essay in this chapter.
This is the final, yes.
Okay.
Let me see if I can. Okay. I'm opening up the book by Barahona, and I want you to see it here. I don't know why I cannot see it here. Just a sec. Show all windows, maybe this one. It says show all windows, but that one, there you are. Okay, that's a table of contents of the books by Barahona, and we're going to start with this, English language teaching and teacher education in Chile, okay? And we're going to positive, and we're going to deal with, so we're going to do chapters 2 and 7, okay? 7 is learning to be a teacher of English in Chile across the boundaries, okay? So chapter 2 and 7. But the complete book is in the Moodle. Okay. So this is, yes, this is not for sure, but I'm going to try to bring Malva Barahona to the class next week. And so be prepared with questions, at least from chapter 2, okay? So we can engage in dialogue with the author if she's around, and if she can come for at least 20 minutes to the class and talk to us about how she came up with the book. The book is part of her doctoral dissertation. She's a teacher of English from UMCE, Universidad Metropolitana de Ciencias de la Educación. So, and then she went to study in Australia. So in Australia, she did her PhD in, I don't remember what university it was in Australia, and her dissertation was about understanding the teaching of English in Chile from the point of view of activity theory. Okay, so that is the introduction to that topic. So prepare questions for next week. Whether she can make it or not to the class, that's okay, but still prepare questions on chapter 2. I would like to introduce this topic with sharing with you in the few minutes that we have left, this idea of teaching English in Chile. So the question is it the same to teach English in Chile than to teach English anywhere else? What is peculiar? What is characteristic about Chile? One way to understand this is to take the notion of English. Okay. Now, we can make a story of the teaching of English in Chile. And the story of teaching of English in Chile goes as way back to colonial times in Chile. In colonial times in Chile, we're talking about 1800. Remember that the so-called independence is in 1810, okay? And I don't know if you remember your history books or the history of Chile. If you remember Aurora de Chile, Fray Camilo Enriquez, okay? In that small journal or newspaper, if you can call it Aurora de Chile, in those times, it is the first public appearance of the teaching of English, when you could read in Aurora de Chile an announcement where they were looking for people that knew English to be a teacher of English. So there was an advertisement que se buscaba a una persona que supiera inglés para impartir su enseñanza. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is like briefly say what is the history of teaching English in Chile that goes to colonial times, and then of course in colonial times we still follow the European tradition, and so in the curriculum at schools there was languages, okay, and there were not only speaking languages, live languages, but there were also languages that were not spoken anymore. Like people at those times needed to study Latin also. Okay, so just imagine from those times until now, the history of teaching English in Chile has lots of ups and downs, until now that you're here studying to be a teacher of English, because society requires people to learn English and to teach English. The English that was the English in colonial times and the English in last century is different than the English in this century. English this century can be understood in these three circles that you see in the presentation. Okay? Inner circle, outer circle, and expanding circle. What does this mean? This means that a linguist by the name of Braj Kashru from India said, well, English is no longer the property of the US or the UK. Now English is spoken all over the world. So we cannot talk about English, but we need to talk about Englishes. Englishes, plural, okay? So English then is spoken in the inner circle. That's the amount of millions of speakers, okay? In the inner circle, meaning those root societies where English started to be spoken. That is primarily the UK and the US, a little bit Australia, okay? However, English expanded, and it's spoken not only in the inner circle, but it's also spoken in the outer circle. And the outer circle is all the colonies from the British Commonwealth that spoke English, like Canada, like New Zealand, like India, like Sri Lanka, like Jamaica, and so on and so forth, okay? That's it's the community in the outer circle, okay? Still, now that we're here, Daniela, Luciano, and Felipe, okay, and we're in a class and we're teaching English and we're using English, and you want to teach the language, we'll teach the language. And we're not in the inner circle, we're not in the outer circle, we're still using the language. And we belong then to the expanding circle, okay? This is where countries like Chile, Cuba, Greece, Italy, and what, okay? People that are using the language, are using English, but they don't belong to the outer circle, don't belong to the inner circle. We belong to the expanding circle, okay? So that's one way to understand this. Another way to understand this is that the inner circle and the outer circle, where you're talking about English as a second language, and the expanding circle, you're talking about English as a foreign language, okay? So that is the introduction to teaching of English in Chile, that we're at this point in which we need to learn, people need to learn English, not only to talk to the so-called native speakers, but also to talk to a lot of other people that are here in the expanding circle. And you see that very clearly when you chat, when you use internet, that you communicate in English with people that are in Russia, people that are in Malaysia, people that are in New Guinea, whatever, okay? So that's where you are here. That's where we are in the teaching of English in Chile. And teaching of English in Chile in terms of the curriculum, the national curriculum, okay, it's called Idioma Extranjero, okay? Idioma Extranjero slash Inglés. Why is it called Idioma Extranjero slash Inglés? It's called Idioma Extranjero slash Inglés because in the past, like when I studied that, and that was a long time ago, as you may you may suppose, when I studied, I studied not only English, but I had from Séptimo Básico, I had English and French. I had two languages, two foreign languages. And then in primero medio or in segundo medio, I don't remember, I could change and stop studying French and study, I remember that was German. And this was a public school. I went to the Liceo Número 2 in Recreo, Viña del Mar, a public school, an excellent high school, public, and we had very good teachers. Actually, that's where I started to like languages. And I had very good teachers of English because they came from, at that point, Universidad de Chile in Playa Ancha, what is now Universidad de Playa Ancha. So I ended up later going to Universidad de Chile in Valparaíso to be a teacher of English. But what I was saying is that it's called idioma extranjero because the idea was to have a repertoire of other languages, but unfortunately, or fortunately, because it's fortunate that we have work, but it's unfortunate for the other teachers, like the teachers of French, the teacher of German, the teachers of Italian. And now, these days, I'm thinking of why not study Mapudungun in the schools. Okay, so that's where did I study? At Universidad de Chile in Valparaíso, what is now Universidad de Playa Ancha. As an optional. Wow.
Mr. Marias, I
Yes.
have a question. The parameters, the numbers in that circles, what does it mean? The parameters.
It's a million of speakers.
Okay.
It's by millions of speakers. But this is a report from the British Council from like 10 or 15 years ago. Okay, it's if you get a chance, it's that's the name of the author, Gradle. Okay, he has a report on teaching on English in the world. Okay. Well, Felipe, Instituto Nacional, it's very exceptional in that at Instituto Nacional, and also Internado Barros Aranas, they have like academies. They have Aymara academies, Mapudungun academies, and they have options of foreign languages. And of course, yes, Chinese. Now, now that you're mentioning Chinese and Mapudungun, what you see here in this introduction is that the teaching of English is not only linguistic, but it's also political. It's also political because idioma extranjero / inglés, that means a monopoly of English, okay? That is, behind the languages, there is also power, okay? So, and that power is political. So when you need to think about that in that when you teach the language, it is not neutral. It is not. Sometimes it is not necessarily beneficial to teach English. And this is what some of the Mapudungun communities are saying. Why do we need to learn English when we are struggling to learn Spanish? Okay, so Any comments or questions? So we can finish here. Let me pause, stop the recording.